Hello everyone, you're on to healthy options with Maureen. Today we are making something very simple and basic. It's the Nigerian Jollof rice. It was requested by someone and I'm making this video on behalf of whosoever is interested. The good thing about my own version of jollof rice is that I try to make it a bit healthy by cutting out things like stock cubes and using natural flavor enhancers, and it actually tastes really good. Come with me as we make this. I know for sure you will like this. Please, if you've not subscribed, don't forget to do so by clicking on the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like this. Don't forget to share as well. Thank you. So for our jollof rice, we'll be starting with the chicken first, and I'll show you how I like to prep my chicken for the jollof rice. You can actually use chicken or beef for this. We'll be needing some chicken. We already have that in the pot. I usually like to use some scotch bonnet pepper because I like my chicken spicy, or if you don't, you can make do without this. We need some onions. I'll be blending a few with the scotch bonnet peppers, and I'll be adding some onion slices as well without blending. Then we need curry powder, thyme, ginger and garlic powder. If you can't find ginger and garlic powder, you can use ginger powder and garlic powder in the same ratio, 50-50 ratio. This has already been mixed. We need some salt, we need some ginger and garlic paste, and the water with which we will be blending our peppers and onions. So first things first, I'll be adding some water to my blender. I'll be adding the onion chunks, not the slices, just the chunks. So the chunks go into the blender alongside our scotch bonnet peppers. Just going to blend. So that's exactly what we are looking for. So now that we have this blended, we'll start adding on our ingredients onto the chicken or beef or whatsoever protein you're cooking with. I'm going to add on the onion slices first. The curry powder goes in, dry thyme, ginger garlic powder, some salt, ginger garlic paste, and last but not the least, our pepper and onion combo that we just blended. We're going to use that to top it up. I'll be rinsing out my blender with just a little water. The water from the blender goes in as well. So I just gave this a good mix now. So we'll be placing this on heat now so that it cooks through, and we'll start prepping our other ingredients. So our chicken has been thoroughly cooked. As you can see, I placed it on a baking pan and I'll be grilling it in the oven under the broiler. We have here our stock and the pot that I'll be using for our jollof rice. So I'll just be pouring this out and then we will commence cooking. So for our jollof rice, we'll be needing some rice. I like to use basmati rice a lot for my jollof rice. We'll be rinsing this out soon. Some tomato that has already been cut in chunks. We need some red bell peppers, also known as tatasi, and that's what we have here. We also need some scotch bonnet peppers, as you can see as well. Some onion slices, some onion chunks. We'll be blending this alongside the tomatoes, red bell peppers, and tatasi. So that's why we need some onion chunks that I'll be blending alongside other ingredients. Our chicken stock, we are grilling our chicken already, and we need our chicken stock, of course. Some vegetable oil, ginger garlic paste. I'll be leaving a link below in the description box to show you how to make this. It's really very nice. It brings out a good taste in your food. It's a combination of ginger and garlic. It's very easy. I always have it handy at home. And I'll also be leaving the card above so you can click on this and check out how to make this. We'll be needing a combination of ginger and garlic powder. If you don't have the combination, you can use the 50-50 ratio of ginger powder separately and garlic powder. Whatever you have will work well. We need some ground crayfish, some salt, thyme, curry powder, and these are optional ingredients. That's the coriander and cumin. Cumin goes very well with jollof rice. I like to add it onto my jollof rice. And whenever you find cumin, a perfect match for cumin is coriander. So if you can lay your hands on these two spices, it's gonna give an additional flavor to the jollof rice. But if not, your rice will still taste great. So we'll be starting with the blending process. So I'll be adding just a little bit of the tomatoes now, and the scotch bonnet pepper goes in, and then the tatase or red bell peppers goes in as well. So using my plunger, I'm just going to smash down by the sides to be able to release some of the juices of the tomato. And then we're going to blend this into a very smooth puree. So we just blended our peppers, the red bell peppers, which is also the tatase, and a little bit of the tomato into a smooth puree. So I'll be adding the remaining tomatoes and the onion chunks. I don't want this too smooth, so I'll just blend it up to a little bit of a rougher texture, then we'll commence cooking. So I'll just be adding the remaining tomatoes into the blender, and then the onion chunks go in as well. So I'm going to turn on the blender once more, and this will be a rougher blend than the first time we blended. So that is right about perfect. We'll proceed in making the tomato stew that I'll be using for our jollof. So I placed the pot on heat, and I'll be adding on my vegetable oil. So our onions goes in at this stage. We'll let this develop a little bit of color before we start adding on the other ingredients. But while it cooks, I also like to add on a little bit of salt at this stage. So the salt goes in, and we'll give that a stir. So that's the stage we want our onions to get to before we start adding on the other ingredients. At this point, the ginger garlic paste goes in. I'm going to give that a stir. The curry powder will be going in at this stage as well, and the thyme goes in at this stage too. So once we start adding on the spices, we'll turn down our heat immediately. I'll be adding on the crayfish too at this stage. So the crayfish goes in. We'll cook this for just a couple of minutes, and then our tomato puree will be going in. So at this stage, the tomato puree goes in as well. So immediately our tomato puree goes in, we give it a stir, and then we'll be adding on our cumin and coriander at this stage. And the ginger and garlic powder as well goes in at this stage. So right now we'll be turning up our heat again. Give this a stir so that it blends in completely. So we'll be cooking this so that we'll evaporate the liquid in the tomato, stewing down the tomato. Then we'll come back and show you what next to do. So while this cooks, I'll just go about rinsing out my basmati rice, because we'll be adding that onto the stew as time proceeds. So as you can see, our tomatoes is cooking down, and you will know because you can notice that the oil is beginning to separate from the tomato itself. So it's not white there. We'll still give this a bit of time. I'll show you what it looks like by the time it's ready to add on the other ingredients. You have to stir at intervals, then let this continue cooking until it cooks down completely. At this point too, we'll be rinsing out the rice under cold water. So I'm just going to run some water through it and gently rub my hand that way. And then I'll be sieving out with a colander. So I will do this severally until the water runs clear. If it's no longer milky, then we'll drain it completely in the colander before we add on to the rice. Let it drain here completely. It's important you do this before your tomato dries up, because it needs a little bit of time to drain out completely. The more it drains out, the better, because you don't want to be adding a bunch of water into the tomato puree by the time you add on the rice. So it's important to wash, give it some time to drain out this way before you add it to your tomato puree. So we'll be checking on our tomato puree now. So that's exactly the stage we want our tomato to get to before we add the rice. You can see it's fully dried out and the oil is separating at the sides. The oil is really visible at the sides. So that's the stage we want it to get to before we add the rice. So at this stage we'll be adding the rice. You can see the rice is completely drained of the fluid. So I'm just going to add the rice onto the tomato stew now. So once we add the rice, we are going to start stirring. We are stirring on the high heat now. We want the rice grains to be completely coated in the tomato stew. At this point, it may seem like it's a lot of tomato, but by the time this cooks through, you find out that it's just right. So you stir for a couple of minutes to mix in all that goodness with the rice, so that each rice is coated with the oil and the tomato stew. This usually takes me about a minute or less, the stirring, before I start adding on the water and then the chicken stock. Right now I'll be adding on the water. You don't need hot water for this, cold water is perfect. And the chicken stock goes in as well. Give it a stir. So I'll be adding more water. Try to separate your rice granules, all the clumps. Try to loosen it out with the water. This may seem like a lot of water, but remember the rice wasn't parboiled, so it's going to soak in all this water and fluff up really nicely. So I'm just going to cover this and let it boil, and once it boils I'll be reducing it to a very low heat, so that it doesn't get burnt at the base. So at this point I'm just going to cover it and let it boil while I prep the vegetables that I'll be needing to garnish my jollof rice. So at this stage our rice is beginning to boil. One of the tricky things with cooking jollof rice is that you have to be very careful so that it does not burn at the base. So as you can see, I'm trying to scrape out some of the rice grains that is beginning to stick to the base but not burning yet. And that's why I said it's important that once it boils, you turn it down to very low heat, and the steam is what cooks the food, not the boiling hot water itself. So at this stage, I'm just going to scrape out the grains that are beginning to stick to the base of the pot. Then I'll be transferring this to the smallest burner, and then I will still turn down my heat to the lowest heat in the smallest burner. So that's beginning to boil, and I'll cover it up again, move it to the smallest burner, turn it down and let the steam do its work. And I'll still be checking it at intervals to be sure it's not burning at the base. So right here I already prepped the vegetables I like to garnish my jollof rice with. This usually goes on during the last stage of cooking. Here we have some green beans, some carrots, and some green peppers. This is completely optional though, but if you want your jollof rice a little bit special, it gives it a better taste. I like to add this on when I make my jollof rice. So after a few minutes, we are giving our jollof rice a check. You can see that it's boiling but not vigorously. It's under very low heat, and that's the smallest burner like I said. But even then, once you notice the water accumulating that way, it's important to open up the base and let the water seep through to the base, because what's happening is that at the base is just the rice but no fluid. So at intervals, you use your spoon to open up so that the fluid can flow to the base, and you can see the rice is becoming visible. So we do this a number of times till close our pot and let it steam through under very low heat, and this will just be perfect by the time it's ready. So that's what our jollof rice looks like at this stage. Came back and repeated the same procedure we did last time by making room for the fluid flow to the base. So right now we'll still give it time to dry up completely. We can still see a bit of fluid at the sides there. Then we'll be adding on the vegetables that I'll be using for the garnish. So that's what our rice looks like at this stage. It's completely cooked through. So at this stage I'll be adding on the green beans and the carrots as well. So I'm not stirring yet. I'll just spread it out and let the steam still heat it up for a couple of minutes. Then we'll add on the green peppers before we serve. So that's how beautiful our rice looks at this stage. And the last thing that is going in, as you can see, are the green peppers. So we'll be giving this a stir and then we'll turn up our heat. That's what it looks like, you can see. So that's what our jollof rice looks like at this stage. As you can see, the rice is not too soft and it's not dried out either. It's just perfect. So I'll be serving this and show you how I like to serve this. So this is how I like to serve my jollof rice with the grilled chicken by the side. It tastes very delicious, really good, even though we don't have seasoning cubes or stock cubes in this. I hope you give this recipe a go and let us know what your take is on this. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you.